Michigan has long been synonymous with the automotive industry, but a new wave of automation is reshaping its factories and redefining its workforce. While technological advances promise to secure the state's position as a global leader, they also raise challenging questions about job displacement and corporate accountability. Today, we explore the opportunities and challenges facing Michigan as it embraces this new age of automation. Michigan's history as a hub of automotive innovation began in 1913, when Henry Ford's Highland Park plant introduced the assembly line. This breakthrough drastically reduced production times, making automobiles more affordable and accessible to the public. It established Michigan as the global epicenter of the automotive industry, setting the standard for efficiency that reshaped industrial practices worldwide. By the 1980s, Michigan manufacturers embraced robotics, marking the early stages of automation in automotive production. Robotic systems were introduced for welding and painting, enhancing precision and reducing errors. Companies like General Motors led the way, using automation to streamline repetitive processes and boost productivity. Today, Michigan remains at the forefront of manufacturing innovation, adapting 4.0 technologies. These include Internet of Things devices and artificial intelligence systems which enable predictive maintenance, real-time data, and adaptive manufacturing processes. By integrating these advanced systems, Michigan's automotive sector can continue to lead the way in efficiency and competitiveness, ensuring the state's enduring influence in the global market. Automation is reshaping Michigan's workforce, bringing both opportunities and challenges. While technological advancements have increased production efficiency and reduced company costs, the human toll has been significant. A University of Michigan study predicts that up to 30% of manufacturing jobs in this state could be displaced by automation by 2030, particularly those involving low-skill, repetitive tasks. This transition has been a double-edged sword for workers. Many face economic uncertainty as machines replace traditional roles, creating a growing need for reskilling initiatives. At the same time, high-skill jobs such as robotics technicians and AI specialists are emerging as critical roles within automated factories. These positions offer higher wages and long-term career stability, but access remains uneven, leaving many displaced workers without clear pathways. This shift has widened the gap between low-skill and high-skill roles. Workers transitioning to high-skill positions can earn up to $70,000 a year annually, while those unable to reskill often struggle to find equivalent employment. Bridging this divide requires coordinated efforts from industries and policymakers to ensure that the benefits of automation extend to all segments of Michigan's workforce. As automation transforms Michigan's automotive industry, ethical questions about corporate responsibility have emerged. Critics argue that companies must do more to ensure the societal benefits of automation are equitably distributed rather than concentrating solely on profits. A central concern is whether corporations are morally obligated to support workers who are displaced by the technology they implement. Some automakers have introduced reskilling programs to prepare workers for high-tech roles, but these initiatives are often limited in scope. Industry leaders acknowledge the need for partnerships with educational institutions to provide comprehensive training in robotics, AI, and other advanced technologies. However, unions and labor advocates argue that these efforts fall short of what is actually needed to address the widespread job displacement. Unions have also raised concerns about transparency and enforceability of these commitments. Without binding agreements, they contend displaced workers are left vulnerable to economic insecurity. because they are. Labor representatives are calling for stronger policies to hold companies accountable and ensure that reskilling efforts are robust, accessible, and aligned with the evolving needs of Michigan's workforce. A federal jobs program modeled after New Deal initiatives could provide a comprehensive solution to address the automation challenges in Michigan's automotive industry. Such a program would focus on reskilling displaced workers and at-risk workers, preparing them for high-tech roles in robotics maintenance, AI development, and advanced manufacturing. This approach would help meet the growing demand for skilled labor in the tech sector and ensure sustainable career opportunities for workers nationwide, not just in Michigan. A modern New Deal program would leverage partnerships among federal agencies, state governments, private companies, and educational institutions to create accessible training opportunities. These partnerships could offer free or subsidized vocational education, both online and in person. This ensures inclusivity across diverse demographics. Legislative support, including tax incentives for companies that participate, would be essential to this success. Beyond filling domestic labor gaps, this program would also preserve existing immigration pathways, such as the H-1B visa program, which continues to support skilled foreign workers. A federal jobs program could foster economic growth and social stability by strengthening the domestic workforce without restricting global talent, ensuring that automation's benefits are widely shared. Automation's rapid advance is testing Michigan's legacy as an industrial leader. With deliberate action, investing in workers, fostering innovation, and ensuring equitable opportunities, the state can navigate this transformation while honoring its heritage. Today's choices will shape Michigan's future as a technological powerhouse where workers thrive. For over a century, the American labor movement has faced calculated opposition from powerful interests working to erode workers' rights. From early violent clashes like the Ludlow Massacre to systemic efforts during the Red Scare, these attacks were not random, but part of a deliberate strategy by industrial elites and political forces to maintain wealth and influence. Key reforms under Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal, such as the Wagner Act and Social Security, empowered workers and transformed labor rights. However, systemic exclusions and opposition from wealthy families like the DuPonts and Rockefellers sowed division, weakening the solidarity crucial to the movement's strength. Fast forward to today, and the echoes of this history persist. As modern labor organizers at companies like Amazon and Starbucks fight for unionization, understanding the roots of this opposition is vital. The dismantling of labor rights over the last century provides a critical lens through which to examine today's challenges and the nationwide resurgence of workers' rights. The American labor movement grew stronger during Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal era. Faced with devastation from the Great Depression, the administration enacted transformative policies like the Wagner Act of 1935, which guaranteed workers the right to unionize and collectively bargain. Programs like Social Security and unemployment insurance provided a safety net, reducing workers' dependency on exploitative employers and establishing protections still recognized today. However, these advancements were not without limitations. Systemic racial biases excluded agricultural and domestic workers, fields predominantly occupied by black laborers, from key benefits. This exclusion created divisions within the labor movement, weakening its collective power and leaving millions without critical protections. The New Deal reforms also faced fierce resistance. Wealthy families like the DuPonts and Rockefellers funded campaigns to frame those policies as socialist overreach, threatening the free market principles. Organizations like the American Liberty League amplified this rhetoric, cultivating skepticism about government-backed labor protections. As labor's victories gained momentum, opposition intensified. By mid-20th century, the rise of anti-communist sentiment, coupled with the political influence of corporate elites, began to dismantle the solidarity and progress forged during the New Deal. These shifts set the stage for a significant erosion of labor rights in the following decades. The mid-20th century saw a calculated effort to equate labor activism with communism, leveraging Cold War fears to undermine unions and fracture solidarity. This period is known as the Red Scare, and this lasted from the late 1910s all the way into the 1950s. Anti-communist sentiment was weaponized to target socialist ideals central to labor's earlier successes. Industrialists and politicians capitalized on public fears following the Bolshevik Revolution, branding domestic labor organizers as subversive threats. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, under J. Edgar Hoover, intensified surveillance of union leaders, labeling them as potential communists. Laws like the Smith Act of 1940 criminalized speech advocating for government overthrow, disproportionately targeting labor organizers. By the 1950s, Senator Joseph McCarthy became the face of this crusade. His infamous hearings in the Senate Subcommittee on Investigations accused individuals in government, education, and unions of communist ties. Often baseless, these accusations destroyed careers and fostered a climate of fear, discouraging advocacy for workers' rights. Labor unions, already under structural strain, were further weakened by these tactics. Between 1949 and 1950, the Congress of Industrial Organizers, once a powerful advocate for workers, expelled 11 unions accused of communist affiliations. This fractured unity, the unity necessary for collective bargaining, further isolating unions from public support. The Red Scare had devastating long-term effects. It stigmatized socialist principles and eroded the public's trust in labor organizations. This coordinated campaign fractured unions and marginalized the ideals that once underpinned their success, leaving lasting scars on the American labor movement. Heading out of the mid-20th century, the United States shifted from New Deal liberalism toward neoliberal economic policies, emphasizing deregulation, privatization, and free market solutions. This ideological pivot dismantled many labor protections and consolidated corporate power, leaving unions increasingly vulnerable. The administration of President Jimmy Carter marked the twilight of the New Deal era. Facing economic challenges like stagflation and the 1970s oil embargo, Carter introduced deregulation in industries such as airlines and trucking. While not overtly anti-labor, these policies signaled a retreat from federal support for unions and laid the groundwork for a broader shift in economic priorities. President Ronald Reagan's administration fully embraced neoliberal principles. Reagan's 1981 firing of air traffic controllers during the PATCO strike was the defining moment, signaling the end of federal backing for organized labor. His economic policies, known as Reaganomics, focused on tax cuts for the wealthy, industry deregulation, and reduced social spending, widening the power imbalance between corporations and workers. The rise of neoliberalism coincided with the consolidation of corporate influence. Driven by corporate lobbying, policies like the Taft-Hartley Act of 1947 restricted union activities, banned secondary boycotts, and allowed states to adopt right-to-work laws. These measures weakened unions' ability to organize effectively, further tipping the scales in favor of employers. As union membership declined, economic inequality surged. By the early 21st century, the top 1% of Americans controlled more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. This growing disparity was not incidental, but the result of decades of policies designed to favor corporations and the wealthy at the expense of working class Americans. This shift eroded labor protections and reshaped the political landscape, leaving unions marginalized and workers increasingly disconnected from the institutions that once championed their rights. Despite decades of decline, the American labor movement is experiencing a resurgence. Workers at companies like Amazon and Starbucks have launched high-profile unionization efforts, capturing national attention and signaling a renewed interest in collective action. This revival comes amid growing economic inequality and stagnant wages, which have fueled frustration among workers across industries. Union petitions have doubled under the Biden administration, marking the first significant increase in decades. Workers increasingly use innovative tactics like salting, where activists seek employment at companies intending to organize from within. These strategies have gained traction in traditionally resistant industries, helping to rebuild momentum for labor organizing. This resurgence reflects a broader rejection of corporate practices prioritizing profits over worker welfare. Striking employees have highlighted unsafe working conditions, insufficient pay, and inadequate benefits, echoing concerns that unions historically fought to address. The movement faces significant challenges, however. Right-to-work laws in 27 states continue to weaken unions by allowing workers to benefit from union-negotiated contracts without paying dues. Corporate anti-union campaigns remain pervasive, with many companies investing heavily to dissuade workers from organizing. Still, the modern labor movement's resilience underscores collective action's enduring relevance. By revisiting the lessons of the past and addressing the persistent systemic challenges, today's workers are laying the groundwork for a renewed era of labor rights. The fight for unionization at companies like Starbucks and Amazon is more than a battle for fair wages. It's a pivotal moment in the ongoing struggle for equality and justice in the workplace. The so-called golden era of American society, often romanticized as a time of prosperity and growth, rested firmly on a foundation of socialist principles. Landmark policies of the New Deal, such as collective bargaining rights, Social Security, the minimum wage, and unemployment insurance, laid the groundwork for widespread economic security and upward mobility. These reforms, built on the ideals of solidarity and shared prosperity, were pivotal in shaping the mid-20th century America. However, decades of political and corporate opposition, which deliberately dismantled labor protections, fractured this foundation. From the Red Scare to the rise of neoliberalism, the erosion of workers' rights was not an accidental byproduct of economic shifts, but a calculated strategy to prioritize wealth consolidation and corporate power over collective welfare. Today's resurgence of labor organizing at companies such as Amazon and Starbucks demonstrates that these principles remain relevant. Workers are again resisting inequities that have widened over the decades, seeking fair wages, better conditions, and rebalancing power. Understanding this history is essential for the labor movement and society at large. The success of the Golden Era was not spontaneous. They were hard-fought and carefully defended. Understanding this history is essential for the labor movement and society at large. The successes of the Golden Era were not spontaneous. They were hard-fought and carefully defended. Modern labor advocates must fight for immediate gains and systemic change that aligns with the values of equity, justice, and solidarity that once defined American progress. As the fight for unionization and workers' rights continues, the lessons of the past serve as both a warning and an inspiration. Rebuilding the foundation of shared prosperity will require the same courage and determination that shaped the progressive era. A reminder that progress is always intentional. America was founded on liberty, equality, and self-determination. These principles are enshrined in the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights, laying the foundation for a society where individuals could shape their destinies, free from oppressive systems. However, over the past century, these foundational principles have been overshadowed by an economic system that prioritizes profit over people. With its hierarchies and systemic inequalities, capitalism now dominates a nation founded on individualism. Let's explore the contradictions between capitalism and America's true ethos, and how we can reclaim the nation's ideals for a fairer, more equitable future. To understand where we are today, we must look back at the ideals that shaped America's foundation. Ideals rooted in liberty, equality, and self-determination. The United States was built on Enlightenment principles, which rejected the rigid hierarchies of feudalism and monarchy. These ideals called for decentralizing power and protecting individual rights, ensuring people could determine their futures. Documents like the Declaration of Independence enshrined these values, explicitly advocating resistance to tyranny. The Bill of Rights further reinforced this vision by protecting freedoms such as speech, religion, and protection from unwanted government interference. The founders envisioned a nation where personal responsibility and the right to shape one's life would be protected. But those principles have been tested and sometimes overshadowed by the systems that we've built since. While America's founding ideals emphasized liberty and individualism, the economic systems that developed alongside them have created contradictions. Let's look at how capitalism evolved and where it began to diverge from those principles. During the nation's early years, the economy revolved around small-scale, localized enterprises. Farmers, tradespeople, and artisans had significant autonomy, and capitalism was characterized by its focus on individual effort and community-driven markets. But the Industrial Revolution marked a turning point. Advances in technology and industrial growth led to the centralization of wealth and power, with factory owners and industrialists controlling labor and resources. By the late 19th century, the Gilded Age saw the rise of monopolies and corporate empires. Wealth became concentrated in the hands of a few, creating economic hierarchies that resembled the feudal systems America's founders once opposed. These trends persist today, and according to the Economic Policy Institute, the CEO to worker pay ratio has soared from 21 to 1 in 1965 to 399 to 1 in 2021, highlighting the growing gap between the wealthy and the working class. This concentration of wealth and power raises an important question. How can a system built on inequality coexist with America's founding ideals of liberty and equality? America's promise of freedom has always been tied to individual autonomy, the ability to make choices without undue interference. However, under modern capitalism, systemic barriers and pressures increasingly compromise that freedom. Capitalism centralizes power in the hands of a few, creating hierarchical structures that limit individual autonomy. Corporations and wealthy elites wield significant control over resources and decision making, leaving workers little influence over their economic futures. Beyond economic inequality, capitalism demands conformity. Employees must often align with corporate norms, sacrificing personal values and creativity just to maintain employment. Outside the workplace, consumer capitalism shapes societal norms through advertising, commodifying identity, and limiting genuine individuality. The most significant contradiction lies in the illusion of freedom. Capitalism is marketed as a system of opportunity, but many Americans face significant economic precarity. A 2022 Federal Reserve report revealed that 35% of Americans would struggle to cover a $400 emergency expense. This financial instability traps individuals in cycles of dependency, limiting their ability to make meaningful choices. Looking closely, capitalism's hierarchies, conformity, and systemic barriers challenge the ideals of liberty and self-determination on which America was founded. When we think about socialism, the conversation often veers into misunderstandings shaped by decades of propaganda. But what if socialism isn't the antithesis of individualism? What if it's the pathway to realizing true freedom? Education plays a pivotal role in challenging these misconceptions. A 2019 Pew Research study found that younger college-educated Americans are more likely to view socialism positively. This reflects how education fosters critical thinking and exposes individuals to systems prioritizing collective well-being and equitable resource distribution. Socialism emphasizes equitable access to resources, empowering individuals to achieve their potential without economic constraints. Policies like universal health care, tuition-free education, and workers' rights enable personal autonomy by removing barriers like poverty and healthcare insecurity. The connection between socialism and individualism lies in their shared goal of empowerment. By addressing systemic barriers, socialism allows people to make meaningful choices about their lives, choices often restricted under capitalism. Even historical figures like Albert Einstein argued that socialism reduces inequality and fosters security, creating the conditions for true freedom. So perhaps it's time to reframe socialism not as a threat, but as a continuation of America's founding ideals of self-determination and liberty. Reclaiming America's founding ideals isn't just a lofty goal. It's a necessity. To align our nation with its promise of liberty and self-determination, we must challenge the systems perpetuating inequality and limiting freedom. One way forward is through progressive policies that address systemic barriers. Universal health care ensures that no one chooses between medical care and financial ruin. Affordable education removes barriers to opportunity, allowing individuals to pursue their aspirations. Worker cooperatives empower employees, fostering shared responsibility and autonomy. History shows us the potential of collective action. The New Deal introduced Social Security and labor protections during a crisis, creating a foundation for personal autonomy and societal stability. These bold policies are just as relevant today as they were then. Education also remains a cornerstone for change. By fostering critical thinking and reconnecting Americans with their foundational principles, we can build a society where freedom isn't a privilege for a few, but a reality for all. Strengthening public education and promoting historical understanding equips citizens to challenge entrenched systems. Encouraging dialogue about economic reform and equity can shift the narrative towards solutions, prioritizing fairness and individual empowerment. The founders challenged oppressive hierarchies in their time. Today, it's our turn to question capitalism's grip on freedom. Reclaiming America's ideals starts with us, with our voices, our actions, and our commitment to a fairer future. Eyes open, voices loud. In the early 20th century, company towns symbolized unchecked corporate control, with employers dictating every aspect of workers' lives. The tragic Ludlow massacre became a stark reminder of the dangers of such systems. Today, billionaire Elon Musk appears to be reviving this exploitive model, not in the coal fields of Colorado, but under the shiny banner of tech innovation. Are Musk's ventures a bold leap forward or a dangerous step back into history? In 1914, the Ludlow massacre shocked the nation, exposing the brutal consequences of unchecked corporate power. This chapter in labor history warns us of the dangers of tying workers' lives to their employers, lessons that feel disturbingly relevant today. Let's look back at what happened in Ludlow and what it meant for labor rights in America. April 20th, 1914. A deadly clash erupted in Ludlow, Colorado, between striking coal miners and the Colorado National Guard. The miners, many of them immigrants, were employees of the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company, owned by John D. Rockefeller Jr. They had been on strike since the fall of 1913, demanding better wages, safer working conditions, and freedom from the oppressive control of company-owned housing and stores. Unable to afford or remain in company housing, these workers and their families moved into a tent colony provided by the United Mine Workers of America. For months, they endured harassment from company-hired detectives and the National Guard. Tensions rose as the company attempted to break the strike through intimidation and violence. On the morning of April 20th, the conflict turned deadly. The National Guard attacked the tent colony, setting tents ablaze and firing on those trying to escape. By the end of the day, more than 20 people had been killed, including women and children who suffocated in a dugout beneath the burning tents. The massacre shocked the nation. Public outcry forced Rockefeller to address accusations of corporate brutality. It became a rallying cry for the labor movement, galvanizing support for unions and reforms that shaped labor rights to what we know today, including the 8-hour workday and workers' compensation. But have we learned from this history? Today, Elon Musk's ventures resemble these systems of corporate control. Elon Musk's ventures, Snailbrook and Starbase, have been marketed as forward-thinking communities, offering innovative solutions to modern challenges. But beneath the futuristic branding lies a model eerily similar to the company towns of the past, where employers held unprecedented control over workers' lives. Let's take a closer look at these projects and the concerns they raise. Snailbrook, a planned community in Bastrop County, Texas, is designed to house the Boring Company, Tesla, and SpaceX employees. Musk envisions 110 homes, a Montessori school, and even a university, all on land owned by his companies. Similarly, Starbase in Boca Chica, Texas, aims to transform from a small community into a city dominated by SpaceX, complete with infrastructure and governance controlled by Musk's enterprises. While these developments are framed as solutions to housing shortages and community needs, they directly tie workers' living conditions to employment. Critics argue that this creates economic dependency because it does. Termination or resignation could mean losing a job or a home, a stark echo of the control mechanisms that defined historical company towns. Labor advocates warn that such dependency erodes workers' ability to negotiate fair wages and conditions. Starbase's remote location in southern Texas, far from major urban centers, compounds these concerns. It isolates employees, making accessing alternative jobs or public services or even union support challenging at best. The parallels to the Gilded Age are hard to ignore. Like the company towns of Rockefeller and his contemporaries, Snailbrook and Starbase consolidate power under one entity, blurring the boundaries between employer and society. These ventures risk creating environments where workers' independence is stifled and dissent is nearly impossible. Elon Musk has referred to his vision for these company towns as utopian. But history reminds us that utopia, for one, often comes at the cost to many. Musk's projects promise convenience and innovation, but their risks, dependency, inequality, and stifled dissent are too significant to ignore. Musk's vision of Snailbrook and Starbase as utopian communities reflects a vision integrating work and life. These towns are presented as forward thinking solutions to modern challenges with housing, education, and amenities tied directly to employment. However, tying workers' livelihoods to their jobs risks creating a power imbalance in which independence is undermined and dissent is silenced. Such systems, history shows, often lead to economic dependency, where workers have limited mobility and reduced bargaining power. Without seeking alternative employment or housing, individuals may feel trapped, unable to challenge unfair working conditions or speak out against corporate overreach. Starbase's geographic isolation only compounds these concerns. Situated far from urban centers, workers are faced with fewer options for external support, be that legal, organizational, or even personal. This echoes the tactics used by 20th century industrialists to maintain control over their workforce, limiting opportunities for unionizing and community advocacy. History has taught us that unchecked corporate power can lead to exploitation, no matter how innovative or sustainable it may appear. Musk's company towns may offer a glimpse into the future, but carry the echoes of a troubling past. It's up to everyone, workers, advocates, and lawmakers, to hold corporations accountable, ensuring that innovation empowers rather than exploits. Utopias are impossible in reality. Without fairness, balance, and accountability, Musk's vision is nothing more than a gilded cage. Beautiful on the outside, but confining within. Thank you for joining me at the Bull Moose Network. Your time is valuable, and I truly appreciate you spending some of it here. If you found value in what we're doing, consider hitting like, subscribing, and leaving a comment. I know it's not nothing. It costs time, and I'm grateful for yours. That small effort helps a new channel like this grow and keep delivering content that matters.